Praise God. That's good. That is good. So I hope you guys are doing well today, wherever you're at in the world, wherever you're watching from. If you're in the car, thanks for letting me come through your speakers. If you're laying in bed watching YouTube, good to be here with you. If you're, about to get on a flight and you just have me buzzing through your ear pods right now, that is crazy to think about. But I'm glad you're listening. In today's podcast, it's going to be a little less formulaic. It's going to be a little bit more just kind of free flow. But I do want to talk about some things that have value to you as a listener, Today I really want to kind of reflect on this little podcast journey we've been on. I do want to kind of reflect on it. And I started my little podcast about, coming up on 2 years. About a year and a half. A little, 1.8 years. Something like that. And when I started the podcast, I had a very different outlook and perception of what I was doing when I first initially started. And it's transformed and progressed over time, which is very normal. Any creative hobby, you're going to have progression if you keep doing it and if you keep reflecting and reiterating upon what you've been doing. But I kind of want to get back to 3 essential aspects of the podcast that were there when I started that have, maybe gotten lost in translation as I've been doing the podcast over time. So one of the first reasons I liked podcasting in the very beginning, it was the concept, the idea of there being no cuts, of there being no editing. The fact that I could sit there and really just create in real time, and the fact I could kind of throw away the whole idea of editing was just kind of refreshing to me. And I say that because before I got started on the whole podcast YouTube journey, I was mainly, my 2 creative hobbies were writing, typing, creating blog posts, writing about self-improvement, self-help, life lessons, psychology, philosophy. I was writing for about 7 years before I started the podcast. And the thing with writing is you have to edit quite a bit. It's very rare that the thought inside your head comes out perfectly onto the paper. And you could have an idea, a sentence, and you can alter that sentence in infinite amount of ways. Different word choice, different combination of words, different number of letters in a sentence. Is it a long sentence or a short sentence? Is it a sentence that packs emotion? Is it a sentence that creates imagery? You can edit a sentence infinitely, basically. And so there's a lot of editing when you're writing as a creative person. And then the other thing I was doing, and I still continue to do, is I produce and create music. And lots of editing goes into that. Every song I've ever finished, the final product that gets published or distributed, enunciate, so much editing, hours upon hours of fine-tuning and editing every last second of the song, every beat, every vocal, every instrument has multiple layers of processing on it, of editing, of EQ, of adding saturation, of compression, of, any sort of color or texture you want to add to the sound. Echo, reverb, creating space. Make that snare have some space on it, boy. So there's a lot of editing that goes into writing and music. And when I started recording podcast, I loved the idea and concept of no cuts. There is no editing here. We are just existing, and it's being captured with the mic, it's being captured with the camera, and that's just how it is. And we are sending it when we're done. When we hit end the recording, see ya, it's gone. No editing necessary, son. So when I started, that was very fun to me. It was very creatively liberating to say I can create in real time, and it's just the pure creativity. Obviously, as I've been doing more podcasts, I edit more. I try and compress down the video so that it's easily digestible. But when I started, I actually really liked that idea of no cuts. You're just this is what's coming out. This is where we're at. This is what we're doing, and this is the stream of consciousness that's coming out of me. So the idea of no cuts was pretty fun when I started podcasting. So keep that in mind. Maybe you're a creative that's considered starting a podcast. I would encourage you just to do no cuts. Take the pressure off. Just be yourself and see what comes of that. So, cucumber lime back into the prime. That didn't make any sense, but it rhymed. Ha! Okay. And there was a second thing that I really liked when I started initially recording these podcasts. The second thing I really liked was the idea of storytelling. And it was the idea of using my words to create context. So going back to the beginning, when I started, there was no video. Now there's video. You can see me now. But when I started, there was no video. It was an audio-only podcast. And there was something about that emphasized my spoken word, my word choice, my tonality. Because there was no visual when I started, I was really kind of tapped into the narration aspect, that my voice is like a paintbrush on this canvas here. And if I desire to explain a concept or an idea to you, the audio only really emphasized the importance of my wording and my vocal. And I liked that. And that just the emphasis, the priority on the spoken word was just such a powerful thing when I started. I'm like, my voice has the power to create imagery in someone's imagination. That is crazy to think about. And so I really love that, and then as time has gone on in my creative hobby of this little podcast, this little YouTube thing, obviously if you want to enhance the final product, put on video, some people might still only listen to the audio only. They might be in their car and they might just pull up the video and then listen to the audio. But the fact that if someone is wanting to watch it and put it on the TV, you have a visual element to pair with the audio. So, but anyways, when I started, I really liked that. And sometimes I think now when I create, I'm almost thinking of the podcast in terms of a visual aspect. I'm thinking of the podcast in terms of the colors of the drink. I'm thinking in terms of what I'm wearing. I'm thinking in terms of, does my hair look okay? I'm thinking in terms of, are there enough candles? Like, does it look nice? Is the angle right? Got the angle figured out finally. But when I started, it was all about this part, the voice, the spoken word. And the word is powerful. The word is powerful. Don't forget. And no cuts. Still going. And then, the third reason I really got a kick out of the whole podcasting thing when I started was the aspect of meditation. The meditative aspect of the podcast. There was something so meditative about it. Something about recording yourself, pulls you very much into the moment. And I'm realizing as I've been going over the years with the podcast, it's quite the privilege to have just peace and quiet and be able to record a podcast. I mean, gosh dang, it's actually what a privilege to be able to sit and think, that I'm able to just set aside time to feel and have some peace and quiet and get into kind of more of what's going on in my own outlook and consciousness, So that was a really good aspect when I started, just the meditative, that I'm going to sit down and I've taken the pressure off the whole that it has to be perfect. I've taken the pressure off the whole it's got to be edited down perfectly before we can post it. Being able to really talk through my life's problems, talk through my experiences and memories, to share that with the spoken word, to again just have a practice where you emphasize communication, where you're practicing communication, where you're flexing your social muscles of talking, right? And so that was all just very, very meditative. And the other aspect of the meditation part of the podcast when I started is the concept of free association. Free association. What's that? Free association is a form of psychotherapy, I do believe. It's a psychological tactic that when a therapist is working with a client, they want to get them into a state of free association where they're actually talking through and reasoning with themselves on how they've conceptualized their life experiences over time. Free association just means that there's no format. It's free. It's free form thought. And so you're actually kind of scratching into the unconscious when you do that. When you give someone space to talk, if you create a space for yourself, this podcast, you are setting up a format, an environment that is conducive to free form thought, to free association. And when you take away the pressure of there needing to be an important topic, there needing to be value for, when you take away all that external and you just get down to what is in your head, what is going on inside your psyche, there's something about that is intrinsically valuable, that has value, that has self-evident value. And so, man, that's the catalyst of why I started those kind of three elements. And I just think how far off I've gotten from that. I don't necessarily consider those aspects as much. Nowadays, when I make videos, when I make podcasts, I don't consider these elements. But when I reflect, I realize, wow, those were kind of the main bullet points of why I loved and still appreciate the whole podcast thing. So it's a great little practice. And I think it's easy to get wrapped up in the external validation of a podcast. Are people listening? Do I have subscribers? It's like, does that even matter? Does that even matter? If that matters, if that's what's most important, then that negates and wipes away and taints the aspects of freedom, of meditation, of storytelling, of creativity. So consider that. Think about that. Apply that into whatever you're going to do, whatever creative thing you're engaged in, whether it's music, whether it's editing photographs, whether it's creating videos, whether it's painting, whether it's drawing, whether it's whatever sort of creative hobby you have. Think about that. Think about what core elements get me into my most creative state. What things put me in a mindset where I am grateful to create, and where, I'm giving myself the best framework to operate within in terms of creativity.